Yeah, I want to tell you a little story that happened in 1978 in my legal career. I had a client, his name was David John Ross, and he was in Vancouver Island Regional Correctional Center for a first-degree murder charge. And, of course, that made him pretty important in the jail because there's a hierarchy of prisoners there, and he was charged with a contract killing, I guess it was. Anyway, he was in there, and one evening I went out, and the place is shut down. I couldn't figure out what was wrong. So I went back to my office, and that's when I got the phone call. It was from the warden of Vancouver Island Regional Correctional Center, VIRCC. He said, David Ross wants to talk to you. And so on the phone comes David John Ross, and I can't figure out why he's allowed to call me. And he says, hey, Doug. That's how he used to talk. Hey, Doug, we got a little problem out here. We want you to come out and negotiate. I said, where are you? He said, I'm in the gym. And I said, what's going on? He said, well, somebody in here, I'm not naming any names, he says, they took a couple of guards hostage, and we want you to come and negotiate for us. And, of course, I knew the call was monitored. So the warden came on and said, yeah, we've agreed that you should, if you want to, you don't have to, but if you want to, you can come and attempt to negotiate. So I thought about it. I thought, I know who's in there. They trust me. I know who's outside. I don't know if I can trust them, but if they're willing to allow me, I think I could do some good here. So I went out to the jail, and it's surrounded, and all of a sudden I'm in the warden's office, and I said, well, there's only one way I can deal with this, and that's if I go in and talk to them. He said, well, you can't go in there. I said, well, why not? He said, well, we can't get you out. I said, well, I think it's the only way to communicate. We've got to go and talk face to face. So they said, all right.
Do they have guards?
Oh, yeah. The place is totally surrounded. Police were there.
Well, I mean, the prisoners had guards they had?
They had two guards. One was named Waldron, and the other was MacDonald. MacDonald was the older one, and Waldron was younger. When
what was their beef?
Well, I really don't know. I think it was they wanted proper treatment for addicts. They wanted to have they wanted the hole, which was the solitary confinement cell, to be exposed because it was really horrible, and it was a situation. I don't know what else there really was, and what really caused it, I don't know. But I wanted to find out, so I decided I would go in there and talk to them and find out, as you just said, well, what is the problem here? So they reluctantly allowed me to go in, and there was a guy by the name of Triplett, who was the deputy warden, former member of the Grenadier Guards, a British guy, nice guy. He's passed away now, but he took me to the door of the gymnasium, and I get to the door and I look through the courtyard, and my feet on the courtyard walkway was long, hollow sound. I remember quite well, and I look to my right, and the whole place is surrounded by shotguns in the hands of policemen. The whole place, every 10, 15 feet, there were police with shotguns all around that place, and I look to my right, and there's this Corporal Fahey, who I had cross-examined some time earlier, and him and I were not very good friends, although we became friends later on. So as I got to the door, Mr. Triplett opened the door with these great big keys, and of course in that silence, it was deathly silent, every sound echoed through this area, and I knew they could hear that door being opened, and then I heard the sound of a shotgun being cocked, goes like that. Well, I thought, you bastard. He cocked that shotgun just as I got to the door, and those people on the inside would hear that just as loud and clear as I did. And I thought, they're going to think this is a rush, and I'll be the meat in the sandwich. But the door closed behind me, and I look around, and there's nothing but broken glass here. And I don't know, where is everybody? I said, hey, hey. And from up on the second floor, down some stairs, I hear Dave say, hey, Doug, we're up here. So I walk up the stairs, and there's probably 18 guys, if you can imagine them, crouched in a fetal position with their backs against the wall. And they're all like this. They're just terrified. And Dave is kind of doing the talking, because Dave's the man. I mean, Dave is the guy in there for first-degree murder, and nobody's arguing with Dave, right? So I said, well, where's the guards? What's going on? Where? He says, they're in there. And I look to my left, and here's this broken out window about 2 feet square. And in the window appears a face, and it is the face of the biggest Indian guy I ever did see, and that was Paul Desjardins. And I immediately looked at that face, into those eyes, and I thought, I am seeing Sitting Bull here. This guy had the most powerful face and the most powerful look in his eyes. Absolutely fearless. And I knew I could talk to this man, and I knew that as long as I had no fear, there was no reason to fear. So I felt, as I did when I took control of that plane with the one wheel falling off, a feeling of complete calm and confidence. Because, you know, you only die once. And I'm not afraid of that. So, I said, "Aye." And he said, "Hello." And I said, "Can I come in?" I went in. And there was a guy called Dennis Matthew Wilson, and he had a knife or a chisel, I can't remember which, right up against Waldron's throat. The 2 guards are tied to chairs, and there was a knife right up here. Knife or a chisel, I'm not sure which, right up at the guy's throat. I said, "Well, what do you want?" I said, there's ways we can solve this without violence, and you know the result if you don't. And I'm here to try and solve this. What's going on, and what do you want? And Desjardins did the talking, and he said, I want a proper treatment for addicts, no punishment except in outside court, which means, you know, you go to court, you're charged with whatever. No warden's court, and I want the media to see the whole. After this took quite a while, you know, and I didn't get I can't remember every back and forth about it, but eventually I said, well, you know what, those are probably, because they don't cost them anything, those are probably terms that they would agree to. But you got to let me go out and explain why you want them. He says, how do I know you're going to come back? I said, because I told you. Nobody forced me to come in here, and nobody's going to force me to come back, but I came. Why wouldn't I come back? The reason I came here in the first place was to solve this problem, and I'm not going to solve it if I don't come back. So you trust me or you don't trust me? He says, okay, you go. So I go outside, and they take me back to the warden's office. And there's the chief of police of Saanich, Esquimalt, Victoria. They're all sitting there. And I said, here's what, you know, this is basically hot air demands. You don't have to do anything significant to agree. No, we're not going to agree. I said, you're not going to agree? What is it you want? All they want is the media to see the whole, no punishment except in outside court. That means they go to court, and proper treatment for addicts. Well, you know, you can agree to that. I don't know if you'll ever deliver, but you can agree to it. And it took me about half an hour to tell them that this is nothing to you. It's not hurting you, and those 2 guards are going to be released as soon as I go back with that assurance. And I said, you waste time, and this is going to get worse. People get tired, they get irritable, and by that time, you know, it's like 2 in the morning. I got there at about 11, and I had to talk and talk and talk and talk to get them to agree to what I just told you. And then they finally agree, and bingo, I knew that if they didn't, you know, accept those terms reasonably quickly, they're going to change. Then we get a telephone call, and it's Dave. He says, now we got a few more things we want to talk about. I thought, oh yeah, a few more things. What's that? Well, we want 2 spikes, 500 milligrams of Demerol, we want cigarettes, we want a radio. I thought, oh, here we go. This is an all-nighter now. This isn't going to be solved because, you know, when they get the Demerol, things start to change. And they're not going to be rational.
What's Demerol used for?
It's a substitute for heroin. It's supposed to calm your nerves. I don't know what it's for. Other than usually it's a painkiller, and I don't know. It's like heroin. It's artificial, I think, artificial heroin. So I said to the warden and all, I said, look, now we got a real problem because you guys wouldn't agree to something reasonable. Now you're going to get unreasonable demands, and I'm the guy who has to go back in there and carry those things. They said, okay. I said, how much longer are you going to wait? And they said, all right, you can take the Demerol, the needles, the cigarettes, the radio, and go back in, and we'll agree to those terms. Well, fine, I said, because don't waste any more time, and don't change your mind, because I'm in there now. I'm a hostage now. And I said one more thing. When I talked to them, I said, they wanted a sign of good faith from the inmates. So the warden said, I want one of them released. So I said, okay, I'll trade myself for the older one, because the older one was MacDonald. John MacDonald, I'll never forget him. And sure enough, they agreed. So I went in, and John MacDonald went out. Now there's Waldron. There's 500 milligrams of Demerol that the police and the prison authorities gave me to take in a sterile container, and 2 needles, cigarettes, and a radio. So I go in, and immediately Wilson, Dennis Matthew Wilson, was the guy who was really, I think, quite unstable. Desjardins was the one person who kept that thing on the track. He did not lose his cool. And if it hadn't been for him, that thing would have deteriorated really quickly, because Wilson was a totally deranged, I think, drug addict. So Wilson gets a hold of the Demerol, immediately shoots Waldron with the Demerol to test it, you see. And I thought, oh God. Anyway, Wilson gets his Demerol, and they start smoking cigarettes. I said, well, we got to make this move in half an hour. I says, McDonald's gone. I'll go out with you. And Desjardins said, I don't want to be shot out there. He says, and I'm not going unless I'm handcuffed to you. And so they sent in handcuffs. I said, I had a phone, and I talked to them. I said, they want handcuffs. They want me handcuffed to Paul Desjardins, and they want Waldron handcuffed to Wilson, and they're going to come out. The 18 guys go out, and then they want the media there to cover the surrender, so to speak. And sure enough, that's what happened. They wanted the media to see the whole. And that night I was handcuffed to Desjardins, Waldron to Wilson. The 18 guys went out, and the media covered the surrender, or my departure from the gym. And then they went and they took photographs of me and Desjardins in the hole, which went in the newspaper, the Times Colonist. And that was that. But they never kept their promise. They never gave proper treatment for addicts. There was punishment. They put Desjardins and Wilson in the hole. Immediately, of course. You know, if they're going to make deals, they should keep their word, because guys like me, who was in that position, will be killed because they don't trust the word in a negotiation. And if they can't negotiate in good faith, the promises they make being broken, the next time something comes up, they'll say, oh no, we want proof. You know, we don't take words, we have to have proof. Well, you can't give proof. Everything has to be based on trust. And I was disappointed with the way they treated, particularly Desjardins, because I think that guy was one, I mean, obviously he did something wrong, very, very wrong in taking hostages. But he was also very noble in the way he dealt with it. He knew he was going to be punished. I think he died in jail eventually. And I'll never forget the fact that if it hadn't been for him being calm, and I think he trusted me and I trusted him, and on that basis we resolved it. And that was a night that lasted till about 5 o'clock in the morning. And at that time I was also before the Law Society on another matter. And that helped, I think. That there was a lot of publicity about that. So the story from the media's point of view has already been told, but nobody's ever heard this side of the story, my side, when I was there. Nobody heard that before. You've heard it for the first time. So that's that.